The cards fell on the table like drops of blood. Eleanor watched through the crack in the door as her father slumped in his chair. His face was grey, his hands trembled. Across from him sat a man she had never seen before. The stranger was tall and dark. His eyes were cold as winter ice. He gathered the cards slowly. He smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "I have nothing left," her father whispered. His voice broke. "Everything is gone." The stranger leaned back in his chair. He tapped his fingers on the table. "Not everything," he said. His voice was smooth like oil. "You have a daughter." Eleanor's heart stopped. She pressed her hand against the wall to steady herself. The room spun around her. She wanted to run, but her feet would not move. "Eleanor is 23 years old," her father said. The words came out harsh and bitter. "She is plain. No man has wanted her. She has no dowry now. What use could she be to you?" The stranger stood. He walked to the window. The moonlight fell across his face. "A debt is a debt," he said. "You owe me £5,000. You cannot pay, so I will take the girl instead. She will work in my household. She will serve until the debt is paid." Eleanor felt tears on her cheeks. She had known her father was cruel. He had told her many times that she was worthless, that she was a burden, that she was too old and too ugly to ever marry. But this was worse than anything she had imagined. He was giving her away like a piece of furniture, like something broken that no one wanted. Her father signed the paper. His hand shook so badly that the signature was barely readable. The stranger folded the document carefully. He put it in his coat pocket. Then he turned and walked toward the door. Eleanor stumbled backward into the shadows. She held her breath as he passed. He did not see her, or perhaps he did not care. That night Eleanor packed her few belongings in a small bag. She had 3 dresses. All of them were old and worn. She had a brush that had been her mother's. She had a book of poems that she had read so many times the pages were soft as cloth. That was all she owned in the world. Her father did not come to say goodbye. In the morning a carriage arrived. It was black and polished. The horses were beautiful. A driver in fine clothes opened the door for her. She climbed inside. The seats were soft leather. Everything smelled of money and power. She had never been in such a carriage before. As they drove away, she looked back at the small house. It had never been a home really, just a place where she had lived, where she had been reminded every day of her failings, where her father had drunk away the family money while her mother grew sick and died, where Eleanor had learned to make herself small and quiet, to expect nothing, to want nothing. The countryside rolled past the window. Green fields stretched to the horizon. Villages came and went. The sun climbed high in the sky. Eleanor's stomach growled with hunger, but she did not ask to stop. She sat with her hands folded in her lap. She tried not to think about what awaited her. They arrived at the estate as the sun was setting. Eleanor stared out the window in disbelief. She had expected a large house, but this was a palace. The building was 3 stories of golden stone. Tall windows glowed with candlelight. Gardens stretched in every direction. Fountains sparkled in the fading light. Peacocks walked across the lawn. The driver helped her down from the carriage. A stern woman in black waited at the door. "I am Mrs. Pemberton," she said. Her voice was sharp. "I am the housekeeper. Come with me." Eleanor followed her through corridors lined with paintings. The floors were marble. The walls were covered in silk. Chandeliers hung from the ceilings like frozen waterfalls of light. Servants moved quietly through the halls. They did not look at Eleanor. She felt smaller with each step. Mrs. Pemberton stopped at a door. "These will be your rooms," she said. She pushed the door open. Eleanor stepped inside and gasped. The room was larger than the entire first floor of her father's house. A bed stood against one wall. It was covered in blue silk. A fireplace held a cheerful fire. Chairs sat near the windows. Thick carpets covered the floor. Fresh flowers filled crystal vases. "There must be some mistake," Eleanor said. Her voice was barely a whisper. "I am here to work as a servant. These rooms are too fine." Mrs. Pemberton's face did not change. "His Grace gave specific instructions," she said. "You are to have these rooms. A maid will bring hot water for washing. Dinner will be served in your room tonight. His Grace will see you tomorrow morning." She left before Eleanor could ask any questions. Eleanor stood in the middle of the beautiful room. She felt like an imposter, like someone would realize the mistake at any moment and throw her out. She touched the silk bed cover gently. It was softer than anything she had ever felt. A young maid arrived with a pitcher of steaming water. She helped Eleanor wash and change into a nightgown. The nightgown had been laid out on the bed. It was white and fine. It fit perfectly. How had they known her size? The maid brought a tray of food. There was roasted chicken and fresh bread, vegetables in butter, a slice of cake, wine in a crystal glass. Eleanor ate slowly. Each bite felt strange in her mouth. For years she had eaten simple food, bread and cheese, thin soup, sometimes nothing at all when money was tight. This meal was fit for a queen. She did not understand any of it. That night she lay in the soft bed and stared at the ceiling. Shadows danced in the firelight. She thought about her father. She felt anger burning in her chest, but also a strange kind of relief. She would never see him again, never hear his cruel words, never feel the weight of his disappointment. Whatever awaited her here could not be worse than what she had left behind. Miles away from Eleanor's beautiful room, the Duke of Ashford sat alone in his study. Alexander Blackwood was 30 years old. He was tall and broad-shouldered. His hair was black as midnight. His eyes were grey like storm clouds. Women called him handsome. Men called him powerful. He owned more land than he could ride across in a week. He had more money than he could spend in a lifetime. He was completely alone. Alexander stared at the contract on his desk. He had won it in a card game 2 nights ago. He had not meant to. He never meant to take things from desperate men. But Lord Hartley had insisted on playing, had bet more and more wildly, had finally put up his daughter as collateral. Alexander had tried to refuse, but pride and anger had taken over. He had won the hand easily. Now he held a document that gave him ownership of a woman's life. It made him sick. Alexander stood and walked to the window. His reflection looked back at him from the dark glass. He saw a man who had everything and nothing. His father had died 5 years ago. His mother had died when he was a boy. His brother had been killed in the war. His sister had married and moved to Scotland. He lived in this enormous house with dozens of servants, but he was utterly alone. He had thought about marriage many times. Society expected it. He needed an heir, but the thought of the marriage mart filled him with disgust. The simpering debutantes and their scheming mothers, the empty conversations, the fake smiles. Everyone wanted his title and his money. No one wanted him. He picked up the contract and walked to the fireplace. The flames leaped and danced. He held the paper close to the fire. He should burn it. He should send the girl back to her father. But Lord Hartley was a drunk and a fool. Who knew what would happen to her there? At least here she would be safe. At least here she would be fed and clothed. He would find her a position, something respectable. He would pay her wages. When she had earned enough, she could leave and start a new life. Alexander lowered the paper. He could not send her back, but he could give her a choice. That was something at least. He returned to his desk and pulled out a fresh sheet of paper. He dipped his pen in ink and began to write. He wrote for a long time. When he finished, he sealed the letter carefully. Tomorrow morning he would give it to her. Then he would see what kind of woman she was. He went to bed, but could not sleep. He kept thinking about the girl sleeping somewhere in his house. He did not even know what she looked like. Lord Hartley had called her plain, had said no man wanted her. Alexander felt a flash of anger at that. What kind of father spoke so cruelly about his own child? He had a sudden fierce desire to protect her, to show her that not all men were monsters. The thought surprised him. He barely knew anything about her, but already he felt responsible. Already he wanted to make things right. Morning came slowly. Eleanor woke to sunlight streaming through the windows. For a moment she forgot where she was. Then memory rushed back. She sat up in bed, her heart pounded. Today she would meet the man who owned her, the man who had won her in a card game like a horse or a painting. The young maid appeared with more hot water. She helped Eleanor dress. There were new clothes in the wardrobe, beautiful dresses in soft colors. Eleanor chose a simple grey dress. It seemed appropriate somehow. The maid arranged her hair. Eleanor looked at herself in the mirror. She looked the same as always. Brown hair, brown eyes, a face that was neither beautiful nor ugly, just ordinary. Forgettable. Mrs. Pemberton came to fetch her. They walked through more corridors. Eleanor tried to remember the way, but everything looked the same. They stopped before a large wooden door. Mrs. Pemberton knocked. "Come in," a deep voice said. The housekeeper opened the door. She gestured for Eleanor to enter. Eleanor took a deep breath and walked inside. The room was a study. Books lined the walls from floor to ceiling. A fire burned in a massive fireplace. Behind a huge desk sat a man. He stood as she entered. Eleanor's first thought was that he was much younger than she expected. Her second thought was that he was the most striking man she had ever seen. Alexander looked at the young woman standing in his study. She was not plain at all. Her father was either blind or cruel, probably both. She had delicate features and steady brown eyes. She held herself with quiet dignity despite her obvious fear. There was something in her face that spoke of strength, of suffering born in silence. "Please sit down," he said gently. He gestured to a chair near the fire. Eleanor sat. She kept her hands folded in her lap. She kept her eyes down. Every muscle in her body was tense. Alexander sat in the chair across from her. He did not sit behind his desk. That would have felt too much like power over vulnerability. "I imagine you are confused," he said, perhaps frightened. Eleanor nodded slightly. She did not speak. "I want to explain something to you." Alexander continued, "Your father lost a great deal of money to me in a card game. He offered you as payment of his debt. I did not ask for this. I did not want this. No person should be traded like property." Eleanor looked up at him in surprise. His grey eyes met hers. She saw something unexpected there. Kindness. Regret. Even pain. "I have written you a letter," he said. He held out an envelope. "Please read it." Eleanor took the letter with shaking hands. She opened it carefully. The paper inside was covered in neat handwriting. She began to read. "Miss Eleanor, you are here through no fault of your own. You have been treated shamefully by your father. I will not add to that shame by treating you as property. I am therefore cancelling the debt. You owe me nothing. The contract your father signed has been destroyed. However, I understand you may have nowhere else to go. I offer you a choice. You may leave immediately. I will give you £200 and a letter of reference. You can start a new life wherever you choose, or you may stay here as my guest for as long as you wish. You will have your own rooms. You will be treated with respect. You will want for nothing. When you are ready to leave, I will help you in any way I can. I ask nothing in return, except that you allow me to make amends for the cruelty you have suffered. If you choose to stay, I would be honored by your company, but the choice is entirely yours. I remain your humble servant, Alexander Blackwood, Duke of Ashford. Eleanor read the letter 3 times. Tears ran down her cheeks. She could not stop them. She had prepared herself for so many terrible things. She had prepared to be treated as a servant. Or worse, she had steeled herself to endure, to survive. She had not prepared for kindness. You burned the contract? She whispered. Last night, Alexander said. You are free. Why would you do that? Eleanor asked. She looked at him with wonder. You won it fairly. My father signed willingly. No person can be won or lost in a card game, Alexander said firmly. No piece of paper can take away your freedom or your worth. Your father was wrong to try. I was wrong to accept. I am trying to make it right. Eleanor wiped her tears with the back of her hand. She thought about her choices. She could take the money and leave. She could go to a city where no one knew her. Find work, perhaps. A room somewhere. It would be hard, but she could survive. Or she could stay in this beautiful house, with this unexpected man who had shown her more kindness in one morning than her father had in her whole life. It seemed too good to be true. There had to be a catch. There always was. What do you want from me? She asked. Her voice was stronger now. Please tell me the truth. No one gives something for nothing. Alexander smiled sadly. I want nothing, he said, except perhaps companionship. This house is very large. I am alone here most of the time. If you stayed, perhaps we could dine together sometimes. Talk. I have few friends. Most people want something from me. My title, my money, my influence. You are the first person in a long time who expects nothing. That is valuable to me. Eleanor studied his face. She saw loneliness there, the same loneliness she had felt for so many years. She understood it completely, and she made her decision. I will stay, she said, for a little while at least, until I decide what to do next. Relief flooded Alexander's face. Thank you, he said. You honor me with your trust. I will not betray it. He stood and offered his hand. Eleanor hesitated only a moment. Then she placed her hand in his. His fingers were warm and strong. He helped her to her feet. For a moment they stood there connected. Something passed between them. A recognition, an understanding. The first thread of a bond that would change both their lives forever. The days that followed were strange and wonderful. Eleanor had her own rooms. She could do as she pleased. She spent hours in the library reading books she had only dreamed of. She walked in the gardens where roses bloomed in clouds of pink and white. She took her meals in her room at first. She was too nervous to dine with the Duke. But Alexander sent her notes. Small messages delivered by servants. He asked about her day. He recommended books he thought she might enjoy. He sent her flowers from the garden. Each gesture was gentle, never demanding, always kind. After a week, Eleanor accepted his invitation to dinner. She dressed carefully in one of the beautiful gowns from the wardrobe, a deep blue that made her eyes look darker. She walked to the dining room with her heart pounding. Alexander stood when she entered. He wore evening clothes. He looked impossibly handsome in the candlelight. "You look lovely," he said. His voice was warm. Eleanor blushed. "Thank you, Your Grace." "Please call me Alexander," he said. "At least when we are alone. All the formality makes me feel ancient." Eleanor smiled. It felt strange on her face. She had not smiled much in recent years. "Then you must call me Eleanor." They sat at a table that could have held 20 people, but places had been set only at one end. Close together, wine was poured, food was served, roasted duck with cherries, potatoes in cream, fresh bread. It was delicious. At first they ate in silence. Then Alexander asked about the books she had been reading. Eleanor relaxed as she talked about poetry and novels. Alexander listened with genuine interest. He asked thoughtful questions. He shared his own favorite books. The conversation flowed naturally. "I never knew reading could be like this," Eleanor said. "At home there was only one bookshop. They had so few books. Most of them I had read already." "You may read anything in the library," Alexander said. "Consider it yours. I have been collecting books for years. It makes me happy to think of them being enjoyed." Eleanor looked at him curiously. "Why do you have so many books if you live here alone? Did you collect them for a family you plan to have?" Alexander's face grew sad. "I had a brother," he said quietly. "James. He loved books even more than I do. We used to spend hours in the library together, reading, arguing about philosophy, making up stories." He paused. "He died 4 years ago in the war. The books remind me of him." "I am so sorry," Eleanor said softly. She knew about loss. Her mother had died when Eleanor was 15. The grief had been overwhelming. "It must be very hard to be here without him." "It is," Alexander admitted. "This house feels empty now. My father died soon after James. My mother passed when I was young. My sister lives far away. Sometimes I walk through these rooms and hear echoes, ghosts of laughter that used to fill these halls. But there is only silence now." Eleanor felt tears prick her eyes. She understood his pain completely. "I lost my mother 8 years ago," she said. "The house felt empty after that too. My father was not a kind man. I was very alone." Alexander reached across the table. He placed his hand over hers. The touch was gentle, comforting. "We have both been alone," he said. "Perhaps we can be less alone together." Eleanor felt warmth spread through her chest. She turned her hand so their palms met. His skin was warm against hers. "I would like that," she whispered. From that night forward, they dined together every evening. They talked for hours. Alexander told her about his childhood, about his brother and their adventures, about the weight of inheriting everything so young, about the loneliness of his position. Eleanor told him about her mother, about growing up with a father who resented her, about feeling worthless for so many years. "You are not worthless," Alexander said fiercely one night. "Your father was a fool. You are intelligent and kind. You see beauty in things others overlook. You listen when people speak. You think before you judge. These are rare qualities." Eleanor felt something break open inside her. She had never heard such words before, had never believed them possible. "You barely know me," she said, but her voice shook with hope. "I know enough," Alexander said. "I see who you are. I see your goodness." Days turned into weeks. They fell into comfortable routines, morning walks in the garden, afternoons reading together in the library, evenings by the fire with wine and conversation. They played chess. Alexander taught her to ride horses. She was terrified at first, but he was patient. He led her mount on a long lead until she felt safe. The first time she cantered across a field, she laughed with pure joy. Alexander watched her with wonder in his eyes. The servants began to whisper. They had never seen His Grace so happy. He smiled now. He laughed. He seemed younger somehow. Mrs. Pemberton told the kitchen staff that it was like watching ice melt in spring. The whole house felt warmer. Eleanor bloomed too. The frightened girl who had arrived was disappearing. In her place was a woman who walked with confidence, who spoke her mind, who wore beautiful dresses and let her hair fall in soft curls, who smiled easily and laughed often. Alexander thought she was beautiful, but he kept that thought to himself. He did not want to frighten her, did not want her to think he expected anything from her. But late at night he lay awake, thinking about her, the way she bit her lip when she concentrated, the sound of her laughter, the softness of her hand in his when they walked. He was falling in love. He knew it. He was terrified by it. One afternoon they sat together in the library. Rain drummed against the windows. A fire crackled in the hearth. Eleanor was reading while Alexander wrote letters. She looked up suddenly. "May I ask you something personal?" she said. "Of course," Alexander replied. He set down his pen. "Why have you never married?" Eleanor asked. "Surely society expects it. Surely there have been women who wanted to marry you." Alexander was quiet for a moment. "There have been many women who wanted to marry the Duke of Ashford," he said carefully. "Not so many who wanted to marry Alexander Blackwood. I always knew the difference. It made me cautious." "That must have been lonely," Eleanor said. "It was," Alexander agreed. "I thought perhaps I would marry for duty eventually, choose someone appropriate and make the best of it." But then he stopped. He looked at her intently. "Then you came, and everything changed." Eleanor's heart began to race. "What do you mean?" Alexander stood. He walked to the window. He looked out at the rain. "I mean that for the first time in my life, I feel truly seen," he said. "You do not want my title. You do not want my money. You want me. Just me. Do you know how rare that is?" Eleanor rose and walked to stand beside him. "You have been so kind to me," she said. "You gave me freedom when I expected servitude. You gave me friendship when I expected cruelty. You have made me feel valuable for the first time in my life. I do not know how to thank you." "You do not need to thank me," Alexander said. He turned to face her. They stood very close. "You have given me more than you know. You have brought life back to this house. You have reminded me what it feels like to be happy, to look forward to each day, to have someone who understands." They looked at each other. The air between them seemed to shimmer. Alexander raised his hand slowly. He touched her cheek gently. Eleanor leaned into his touch, her eyes closed. The moment stretched between them like a golden thread. "Eleanor," Alexander whispered. His voice was rough with emotion. "I am falling in love with you." Eleanor's eyes opened. Tears sparkled on her lashes. "I am falling in love with you too," she said. "I tried not to. I told myself it was impossible, that you could never feel the same, but I cannot help it." Alexander's hand moved to cup her face. His thumb brushed away her tears. "Why is it impossible?" he asked. "Because of your father's debt." "I told you that means nothing, because of your lack of title. I do not care about such things, because you think yourself unworthy. You are the most worthy person I have ever known." "Because I am nobody," Eleanor said. Her voice broke. "I have no family worth claiming, no fortune, no beauty or accomplishments. You are a duke. You could have anyone. Why would you choose me?" "Because you are everything," Alexander said fiercely. You are kind and brave and true. You see the world with wonder. You make me laugh, you challenge my thinking. You listen when I speak. You understand my grief. When I am with you, I am not a duke. I am just a man who is deeply, desperately in love. He leaned forward slowly, giving her time to pull away. But Eleanor did not pull away. She rose on her toes to meet him. Their lips touched softly. The kiss was gentle, tender, full of promise. Eleanor felt the world tilt beneath her feet. Nothing had prepared her for this, for the warmth that flooded through her, for the feeling of rightness, of coming home. When they parted, both were breathing hard. Alexander rested his forehead against hers. "Marry me," he whispered. "Not because of any debt, not because you have nowhere else to go, but because I love you, because I want to spend every day for the rest of my life with you, because you are my home." Eleanor's heart soared, but doubt crept in like cold water. "Society will never accept it," she said. "I have no connections, no dowry. They will say terrible things. They will call me a fortune hunter. They will make your life miserable." "I do not care what they say," Alexander said. "I have spent my whole life doing what society expects, being proper, being appropriate, and I have been miserable. You are my chance at happiness. I will not give that up for anyone." Eleanor wanted to say yes. She wanted it more than anything, but fear held her back. "Give me time," she whispered. "Let me think. This is so much, so fast." Alexander stepped back. He looked disappointed, but he nodded. "Take all the time you need," he said. "I will wait. I would wait forever if I had to." That night, Eleanor could not sleep. She paced her room. She thought about everything that had happened. 2 months ago, she had been a burden in her father's house, unloved, unwanted, worthless. Now a duke wanted to marry her, a good man, a kind man, a man she loved with her whole heart. But what if he was wrong? What if society destroyed him for marrying her? What if he came to regret it? She could not bear the thought of causing him pain, of ruining his life. It would be better to leave now, to disappear, to let him find someone appropriate. The thought of leaving made her chest ache, but she loved him too much to destroy him. In the morning she asked Mrs. Pemberton to pack her things. "I am leaving," she said quietly. "Please give the Duke this letter." She wrote to Alexander with tears streaming down her face. She told him she loved him, that she always would, but that she could not marry him, that he deserved better, that she was leaving so he could find happiness with someone worthy of him. She sealed the letter and left it on her desk. Then she slipped out of the house before dawn. She walked down the long drive. The sun was just rising. Birds sang in the trees. It was a beautiful morning. Eleanor felt like her heart was breaking. She had gotten perhaps a mile when she heard hoofbeats behind her. She turned to see Alexander riding toward her at a gallop. He pulled his horse to a stop and leaped down. He ran to her. "What are you doing?" he demanded. His hair was wild. He was not even wearing a coat. "Mrs. Pemberton found your letter. She brought it to me immediately." "Eleanor, you cannot leave." "I have to," Eleanor said. Tears ran down her face. "You will be ruined if you marry me. Everyone will talk. They will cut you from society. Your friends will abandon you. I cannot do that to you." "Do you love me?" Alexander asked. He gripped her shoulders. "Yes," Eleanor sobbed. "With all my heart. That is why I must go." "No," Alexander said firmly. "That is why you must stay. Eleanor, I do not care about society. I do not care about gossip or scandal. I have been alone for so long. Then you came into my life, and I learned what it means to be truly happy. Do you really think I would give that up? Do you really think I would let you walk away? You deserve someone better, Eleanor whispered. I deserve someone who loves me, Alexander said. Someone who sees me. Someone who makes me want to be better. You are that person. You are the only person. Please, Eleanor, do not run from this. Do not run from us. I know you are frightened. I am frightened too. But we can be frightened together. Please, say you will marry me. Eleanor looked into his grey eyes. She saw love there, and hope, and determination. She saw her future, a future she had never dared to dream about. And she made her choice. Yes, she said. Yes, I will marry you. Alexander pulled her into his arms. He kissed her desperately. She kissed him back with everything she had. They clung to each other in the middle of the road. As the sun rose higher, they were both crying, both laughing, both overwhelmed with joy and relief. I was so scared, Alexander murmured against her hair. I thought I had lost you. You will never lose me, Eleanor promised. I am yours. Completely. They walked back to the house, hand in hand. The servants were waiting anxiously. When they saw Alexander and Eleanor together, smiling, holding hands, a cheer went up. Mrs. Pemberton wiped her eyes with her apron. Even the stern housekeeper was smiling. Alexander announced their engagement that morning. He wrote to his sister in Scotland. He wrote to friends. He sent a notice to the papers. He wanted everyone to know Eleanor was his. He was hers. Nothing would change that. The wedding was planned for 6 weeks later. It would be at the estate. Eleanor had no family to invite, but Alexander's sister travelled down from Scotland with her husband and children. A few of Alexander's closest friends came. The servants prepared the house. Flowers were everywhere. Music filled the halls. But 1 week before the wedding, a carriage arrived at the estate. Eleanor was in the garden cutting roses when she heard the commotion. She walked toward the house. A man was climbing out of the carriage. Eleanor froze. It was her father. Lord Hartley looked older, thinner. His clothes were shabby. His face was haggard. He saw Eleanor and his expression twisted into something ugly. There you are, he snarled, living like a queen while I starve. Alexander appeared on the steps. His face was cold as ice. Lord Hartley, he said. His voice could have cut glass. You are not welcome here. I have every right to be here, Lord Hartley said. He pulled a piece of paper from his pocket. I have come to collect my daughter. The contract states that she must work to pay off my debt. You cannot marry her. She belongs to me. Eleanor felt the world tilt. She looked at Alexander in confusion. You said you burned the contract, she whispered. I did, Alexander said firmly. He walked down the steps toward Lord Hartley. That paper you hold is worthless. I destroyed the original weeks ago. This is a copy, Lord Hartley said with a nasty smile. Witnessed and signed. It is legally binding. Eleanor must return with me, unless of course you wish to pay the £5,000 you won from me. With interest, it is now £7,000. Eleanor felt sick. This was her father's plan. He had come to blackmail them, to threaten and scheme until he got money. She should have known. He never did anything without a selfish reason. You are pathetic, Eleanor said. Her voice rang out clearly. You sold your own daughter. Now you want to use her to steal money. You are not a father. You are a monster. Lord Hartley's face turned red. How dare you speak to me that way? I am your father. You owe me respect. You owe me obedience. I owe you nothing, Eleanor said. She walked to stand beside Alexander. You gave up any right to me when you traded me in a card game. Alexander saved me from you. He gave me freedom and love. Things you never could. I will never go with you. Not for any reason. Then you will force His Grace to pay, Lord Hartley said smugly. £7,000, or I will take this contract to the courts. I will make sure everyone knows that the Duke of Ashford is trying to marry a woman who is legally bound to servitude. The scandal will destroy you both. Alexander's jaw clenched. Eleanor could see him calculating. £7,000 was nothing to him. He could pay it easily, but it was the principle. Giving in to blackmail would only invite more, and it would mean Lord Hartley won. That evil triumphed. She could not let that happen. No, Eleanor said firmly. She looked at her father with contempt. Do your worst. Take your false contract to the courts. Tell everyone your lies. I do not care anymore. I am not ashamed. You should be ashamed. You are a drunk, and a gambler, and a cruel man. The whole world can know it. I am going to marry Alexander. I am going to be happy, and there is nothing you can do to stop it. Lord Hartley stared at her in shock. He had expected fear. He had expected tears and begging. He had not expected strength. You stupid girl, he spat. You think he really loves you? He feels sorry for you. Once the novelty wears off, he will see what I always saw, a plain, worthless burden. He will cast you aside and you will have nothing. That is where you are wrong, Alexander said quietly. His voice was deadly calm. I do love Eleanor, more than you could possibly understand. And if you ever speak to her or about her that way again, I will destroy you. Not with money, with truth. I will tell everyone about your gambling debts, your drinking, how you gambled away your own daughter. I will make sure every gentleman's club in England knows your name. You will never be welcome anywhere again. Now get off my property before I have you thrown off. Lord Hartley paled. He looked from Alexander to Eleanor. He saw that he had lost, that his bluff had failed. Without another word, he climbed back into his carriage. As it pulled away, he did not look back. Eleanor began to shake. Now that the confrontation was over, the fear caught up with her. Alexander pulled her into his arms. He held her tightly. You were so brave, he murmured. I am so proud of you. I was terrified, Eleanor admitted, but I meant every word. I am not ashamed anymore. He cannot hurt me now. No one will ever hurt you again, Alexander promised. I will make sure of it. But Lord Hartley's visit had shaken them both. That night they sat by the fire. Eleanor was quiet. Alexander could see her thinking. What if he does go to the courts? She asked, finally. What if he makes trouble? Let him try, Alexander said. I have lawyers, friends in high places. The contract was signed under duress. A person cannot be wagered. Any court would throw it out. But even if they did not, I do not care. I would gladly pay £100,000, £1 million, any price, as long as I have you. Eleanor looked at him with wonder. How did I get so lucky? She whispered. How did I end up here with you? I am the lucky one, Alexander said. He took her hand. You could have run. You could have left when I first gave you the chance, but you stayed. You gave me a chance to know you, to love you. That is the greatest gift anyone has ever given me. They kissed softly. The fear and tension melted away. Nothing else mattered except this, the two of them together. The world could throw whatever it wanted at them. They would face it together. The wedding day arrived bright and clear. Eleanor woke early. Her heart was pounding, but this time it was with excitement, not fear. The maid helped her dress. The wedding gown was cream silk with tiny pearls sewn into the bodice. It fit perfectly. Her hair was arranged in soft curls. She wore her mother's pearl earrings, the only thing she had of her mother's besides the brush. Alexander's sister came to see her before the ceremony. Lady Catherine had kind eyes and a warm smile. "You look beautiful," she said. "I am so happy for Alexander. I have never seen him like this. You have given my brother back his joy. Thank you." Eleanor hugged her. "He has given me everything," she said. "I will love him all my life." The ceremony was held in the estate chapel. It was small and old. Sunlight streamed through stained glass windows. Flowers covered every surface. The few guests sat in the pews. A string quartet played softly. Eleanor walked down the aisle alone. She had no father to give her away, but she did not need one. She was giving herself. She was choosing this, choosing love, choosing happiness, choosing Alexander. He stood at the altar watching her approach. His eyes were bright with tears. He was dressed in black formal clothes. He looked impossibly handsome, but it was the expression on his face that took her breath away. Pure love, pure joy, pure certainty. She reached him and took his hand. The vicar began the ceremony. The words washed over Eleanor like a blessing. Then it was time for vows. Alexander spoke first. "Eleanor," he said. His voice was steady and strong. "I vow to love you every day of my life. I vow to cherish you, to support you, to stand beside you always. You have healed my heart. You have made me whole. I promise I will spend the rest of my days trying to make you as happy as you have made me." Tears ran down Eleanor's cheeks. She smiled through them. "Alexander," she said, "you saved me. Not just from my circumstances, but from myself. You showed me that I am worthy of love. You gave me the courage to hope. I vow to love you fiercely, to be your partner in all things, to fill this house with laughter and joy. You are my home, my heart, my everything." The vicar pronounced them husband and wife. Alexander kissed her softly, then deeply. The small group of guests cheered and clapped. Music swelled. They walked back down the aisle hand in hand, man and wife, duke and duchess, but more importantly, two people who had found each other against all odds. The celebration lasted all day. There was a feast, dancing, toasts. Alexander's sister pulled Eleanor aside. "Welcome to the family," she said warmly. "I always wanted a sister. Now I have one." That night, Eleanor and Alexander stood on the balcony of their rooms. The stars were bright overhead. Music drifted up from below where the servants were still celebrating. Alexander wrapped his arms around Eleanor from behind. She leaned back against his chest. "Are you happy?" he murmured into her hair. "I did not know it was possible to be this happy," Eleanor said. 6 months ago I thought my life was over. I thought I would never know love or joy. Then you burned that contract. You set me free. You gave me the world." "You gave me the world," Alexander said. He turned her in his arms to face him. "Before you came, I was just existing, going through the motions. Now I am living, really living. You did that. Your love did that." They kissed under the stars. Two broken people made whole. Two lonely hearts finally home. The weeks and months that followed were the happiest of Eleanor's life. She settled into her role as Duchess with unexpected grace. She was kind to the servants. She visited the tenants on the estate. She organized charity work in the village. The people loved her. They saw her goodness. They saw how happy the Duke was. They welcomed her completely. Some members of society did talk. There were whispers about her background, rumors about the circumstances of the marriage. But Alexander and Eleanor did not care. They were too busy being happy, too busy building a life together. Eleanor transformed the house with her presence. She filled vases with wild flowers. She played piano in the evenings. She read to Alexander from her favorite books. She made him laugh with her observations about society. She challenged him in chess and usually won. She was his partner in everything. Alexander watched her bloom with pride and wonder. The frightened girl who had arrived was completely gone. In her place was a confident woman who knew her worth, who stood up for what she believed, who loved fiercely and laughed often. He fell more in love with her every single day. One evening, about 6 months after the wedding, they sat in the library. Eleanor was reading, but she seemed distracted. Alexander looked up from his letters. "Something on your mind?" he asked. Eleanor set down her book. She looked at him with shining eyes. "I have news," she said. "I was waiting to be certain. I went to the doctor yesterday." Alexander's heart stopped. "And we are going to have a baby," Eleanor said. Her smile was radiant. "In about 6 months." Alexander leaped from his chair. He pulled her into his arms and spun her around. She laughed with delight. He set her down gently and cupped her face in his hands. "A baby," he breathed. "We are going to have a family." "I know you always wanted children," Eleanor said. "I know this house has been too quiet for too long. Soon it will be filled with noise and laughter and chaos." "It will be perfect," Alexander said. He kissed her tenderly. "Just like you, just like us. Our child will know only love, only warmth, only joy." Eleanor thought about her own childhood. The coldness, the cruelty, the loneliness. She thought about how different things would be for her baby, how loved this child would be, how cherished. She had broken the cycle. She had created something new, something beautiful. "Thank you," she whispered to Alexander, "for everything, for saving me, for loving me, for giving me this life." "You saved me too," Alexander said. "Never forget that. We saved each other." And it was true. Two broken people had found each other, had healed each other, had built something extraordinary together. From ashes and pain had come love and joy. The contract had been burned, but the love remained, stronger than paper, stronger than debt, stronger than anything in the world. Eleanor looked around the library, at the thousands of books, at the fire crackling cheerfully, at Alexander smiling at her with such love. She thought about the tiny life growing inside her, about the future stretching before them bright with promise. She had been gambled away by a cruel father. She had expected servitude and suffering. Instead, she had found freedom and love. She had found home. She had found herself, and she had found him, the man who had burned the contract, the man who had set her free, the man who had loved her when she thought she was unlovable. This was her life now, this beautiful, impossible life, and she would treasure every single moment of it. Years later, when people asked Eleanor about her past, she would smile mysteriously. "I was lost," she would say. "But then I was found, and everything changed." She never spoke about her father. That pain was long buried. He lived in poverty somewhere far away. She had heard he died eventually. She felt nothing at the news. He had been a stranger to her for a long time. But she spoke often of Alexander, of his kindness that first morning, of the letter that changed her life, of how he had chased her down the road when she tried to leave, of the wedding that had been small but perfect, of the love that grew deeper every year. Their children grew up in a house filled with warmth. 3 boys and 2 girls. They knew their parents' story. They knew that their mother had come from nothing. that their father had chosen love over expectations. They learned that kindness mattered more than titles, that courage meant standing up for what was right, that love could heal the deepest wounds. Alexander and Eleanor grew old together. They held hands on walks through the garden. They read by the fire in the evenings. They watched their children grow and have families of their own. They filled the house with laughter and love, just as they had promised. And every year on their wedding anniversary, Alexander would take Eleanor's hand. He would look into her eyes, and he would say the same words he had said that first day. "You honor me with your trust. I will not betray it." And Eleanor would reply, "You never have, you never will," because that was the truth. The burned contract had set them both free, free to choose, free to love, free to build a life that was entirely their own. And they had built something extraordinary, something that would last for generations, something that proved that love could triumph over any darkness, any pain, any obstacle. They had started with nothing but a card game and a cruel twist of fate. They had ended with everything that truly mattered: each other, their family, their love, their home. And that was worth more than all the contracts and all the money in the world. That was everything. That was forever. That was theirs. But